Going to begin today's Tanya. But before we do that, we have to discuss what the Alter Rebbe has been saying over the past couple of days. So he asked a question, and the question's a good one. I mean, I guess all his questions are good ones. But the question was, what does it mean when it says that the divine presence rests in the Holy Temple? So the Holy Temple has this divine presence resting. God rests in the Holy Temple. He says, what does that mean? It's God rests everywhere. God's presence is everywhere, right? Kadosh, 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 Baruch Kavod Hashem Imkomo, and Hashem is everywhere, right? There's no place devoid of Him, right? That's another quote. So what does it mean when it says that God rests, the Shekhinah, the divine presence rests in the Holy Temple? That's the question the Alter Rebbe posed. So he said, in order to answer that, he says, let's talk about the body. So he says, you have a body, and where is the soul manifest in the body? Where? So he says that some people think it's in the head. Some people think it's in the heart. So the answer is the soul, which is godly energy, the soul, which is godly power, is in our entire body exactly the same. You don't have more soul energy, more godly energy in the head, in the heart, over arms and legs, etc. He says you don't. He says, however, there are certain places where it's more revealed. So there's a little more godly energy in the head than there is in the arm. And he says, for that matter, there's a little bit more of a godly energy, not more godly energy, godly energy revealed. That's the operative word. There's a little bit more godly energy revealed in the head vis-a-vis the arm. And he says, in truth be told, there's a little more revealed in the head vis-a-vis the heart. Because once again, moyach shalat ala lev, a human being has to always be in mind control. Your mind has to control even your heart. How do you do that? Because you have revealed godly energy. But to say that but it's one energy. It's one energy. It's exactly the same energy. God forbid to say that the eye has 60% and the leg has 20% and the nose has 59%. He goes, no, you can't say that, because then it seems like godly energy is divided. It's by different, depends on the person. It's not like that. It's the same godly energy. The question is how much is revealed? How much light peeks through? It's the same energy. So if you think about it, just to use a metaphor, and he didn't use this metaphor, I'm using this metaphor. He does use it elsewhere. He does actually. He says, if you think about it, the sun is the same sun, right? We're sitting in Dixil's and we have this sun coming through our windows. It's shining on the house. One window, we put up a silk curtain. The other window, we put up a thicker wool curtain. The other window, we put up that we bought them specially from Alaska that has 6 months daylight. So it's an opaque curtain. It blocks out the sun, etc. It's the same sun. The question is, how much concealment is there? But you can't say the sun shines differently in each respective window. It doesn't. The sun shines the same. How much we let in, that is the question. So he said, so with the body, and this is the past 2-3 days, with the body, he says the brain lets in a little more by God design, right? The arm a little less by God design, but it's the same divine presence. We're going to extrapolate that thought in today's Tanya, and probably tomorrow's Tanya, or maybe not, we'll see, is to answer the question about the Holy Temple. So he says, so just as we discussed, just like in the soul body analogy we just gave, right? The soul is equally divided throughout. It's equally present throughout, like the sun is equally present throughout. And there's no difference between which organ gets more, gets less, right? So too is godly light, the divine energy, and creation. And that's how he begins. We're holding in the middle of chapter 51. Just so you know, there's 53 chapters to the first book of Tanya. And the first book of Tanya ends on the first day of Shavuot, I think. I think that's when it ends. The next book of Tanya begins on the second day of Shavuot. And that's 12 chapters. This is the largest book by far. And this was his first book, even though the second book he really wanted to put first, but was dissuaded, something to that effect. So now let's talk today's Tanya. He says, "Kocha mamish," so true. It is so similar, by way of analogy of the Ein Sof, right? The way the infinite light, blessed be He, Memala kolam, and fills all this world, right? So there's a godly energy that vitalizes the world, right? And he says, and just like the soul pervades the body equally, so the Ein Sof pervades and permeates, illuminates the world equally, right? He says, and if you think about it, in every single world, right, there's 4 worlds, and each world has its own, where it digresses. So think of 4 trees, and each tree has multiple branches and branches on branches and twigs and little twigs and smaller twigs, and then you finally get the leaf, right? So he says, so each world, there are so many different creations, right? Myriads upon myriads of creations. There's also multiple worlds. There's 4 main where God contracted, but there's multiple things going on. Right? So, and he says, the core, the essence of godly light, of godly energy, which is what vitalizes the world, is the same. It's the same in the upper worlds. It's the same in the lower worlds, right? So just like the soul's core in the body is not divisible, and it has exactly the same energy. So too in the worlds, and there's hundreds of thousands of different levels. It's the same godly energy that pervades throughout. And he says, and it's as it's written in the Zohar, that God is hidden from the hidden. In other words, even in the hidden worlds, God is hidden, just like He's hidden in the lower worlds. And so it's not that God is more concealed, right? But than other hidden things, but rather God is concealed even from the hidden worlds. Because no thought can comprehend Him, even in the upper worlds. Because God is equally concealed from all the worlds, no distinction can be made. He defies comprehension in the upper worlds. He defies comprehension ultimately in the upper worlds and the lower worlds. The nimtza, and therefore God is found, and this is the point. God is found in equal measure, upper worlds and lower worlds. You can't say God is more in the upper worlds, because then you would have to start dividing God. And God is not a composite, a little bit here, a little bit here. God is one. Hashem echad, Shmo echad. So it's not that God is different components, different compartments, etc. Rather, God is a simple oneness. And the Hevdal, he says, and the difference between upper worlds and lower worlds, he says it's how much of revelation is drawn. So how much from how much was revealed to us, how much light was let in, as in the case of the windows. In the first window, we had this silk sheer, right, translucent curtain, a lot of light came in. The first window, perhaps we had nothing, so it's completely transparent. The next window was translucent. The next window was opaque. And the next window was just completely, nothing came in. You allowed nothing. So there lies the difference, is the upper world's divine energy was revealed. In the lower world, it was just revealed less. Why would God conceal? And the Alter Rebbe preempts this. Why would God conceal it? Why would God conceal this low? Why in this world? Why is it lower? Why is it lower? Why can't it be all the same revelation throughout? So the Alter Rebbe says, and this is we have discussed this before, and the Alter Rebbe says that the difference between the high and low worlds, and the upper worlds, right? They receive more of a revelation than the lower worlds. Right? The Chol HaBruyim, and all creations receive according to their capacity and nature. Let's go back to the body analogy. The divine energy that the eye receives, right? It's revealed, and the eye, the receptacle, receives it the way it can. If it's too much energy that's being revealed, the eye possibly would you go blind. Likewise, the ear is a receptacle for the neshama, right? For the soul as well. The ear, once again, the soul pervades the body. So the ear sets the tone of how much divine revelation can be based on its capacity, not the energy's capacity, on its capacity. So the brain gets the most, the heart gets next, right? And of the revelation. And because they first of all, they need it, they can handle it, etc. So likewise, the world, it depends on the receptacle. So it says that the different worlds get different revelations according to their particular their capacity that can flow. He says, "Vatachtonim," in the low worlds, even the spiritual low worlds, right? So you have different worlds, and you have this world of Asiya. Asiya has a spiritual counterpart. Asiya has a physical counterpart. We're the only world that has a physical counterpart, by the way, and spiritual. Like we have both. Other worlds are all ethereal and spiritual in nature. This is the only world where we have tangible, and we have where this is. We look at a table and we say, "This is not God. This is wood." Right? It's the only world like this. So it says the lower worlds, even the spiritual lower worlds, they do not receive as much revelation of the energy as the higher worlds, except through levushim rabim. It's many. Just like the levushim rabim, there's many garments. Just like the window analogy. If you only have the window analogy, you can put up 16 curtains, you'll get even less light. So take that sheer curtain as an example, and it's sheer, it's see-through, right? And it's and you put 16 of them, that's going to create the same effect as the curtain from Alaska. He says, so the lower worlds, even the spiritual lower worlds, and especially the physical lower world, receive the light. And this is God's way of creation. They only receive the light that in order to give them, to animate them, to give them vitality, right? So the divine life force is clothed with garments because God didn't want it to be revealed, right? So there's a qualitative concealment, there's a quantitative concealment. And there's a tremendous difference between the upper worlds and lower worlds. But the lower worlds, why? He says, "V'kolkach," these garments, qualitatively and quantitatively, were so many that it's able to conceal godly and apparent godliness. So that's what God wanted. God, the upper world, they had one curtain. The next world, 2 curtains, and 3 curtains, and 4 curtains, and 5 curtains, right? And then you finally get to our world, you have 16,000 curtains, right? Because that is the capacity of this world. And that's the mechanism God set up. So it's so many curtains until God was able, right, to create this world, which is physical and corporeal. And because by the way, the light, right, which we call it the light, which is God's energy, is what creates the world. So it's not there's a creative force and there's a light. No, when we say light, the Ein Sof, the infinite light, blessed He, that is synonymous with the creation juices that God uses, the magic. So our world is so concealed qualitatively and quantitatively, and that until physical things are to be created. Physical things, and the Alter Rebbe continues that the light is so concealed with so many quantity garments and so many and quality garments, and so until you do not see, you cannot see any light. You don't see godliness. So when you look at physical things, even things that are alive, they look dead. Dead meaning they don't necessarily look like they have a godly life force, right? You take a look at this world. Godliness is not apparent. It's just not apparent, right? And it doesn't have any spiritual vitality. Yes, it's just nature. Nature takes its course. He says, but truth be told, that in this world, in this chair, in this table, in you, in this computer, in this pen I'm holding, yesh there's light, chayas and energy, hamachayosam, that vitalizes and animates this pen from nothing to something, so it shouldn't cease to exist. As he explained that, as we explained, that when you create something from something, you don't need to oversee it constantly, right? So when you take wood and you cut wood and you shave wood and you trim it and you mold it and you create this beautiful door out of a piece of wood, that's called something from something. All you did really do is change the shape and put a little shellac. If you think about it, you just bored a little holes there, and yeah, you're an artist for sure. I can't do it. I was cutting something today and in my house, and I ended up cutting the extension cord. That's how brilliant I am. Why isn't it working? This hedge trimmer. So when you create something from something, you don't need constant vitality. You can walk away. You can sell the door. You'll never see the door again. But when you create something from nothing, it needs God's constant creative juices, the light, the flow, the energy, in order to assure that it doesn't exist. It doesn't disappear into nothingness like it was before it was created. So he says, so this world, even though godliness is not apparent, and it looks like it's just nature, and it looks like it's just, this wood, this was not alive, right? No, this wood has godly energy in it. Just like you have godly energy, this wood has less than you have. Animals has less than you have, but more than the wood has. Right? And an animal has more than a rock has, etc., etc. And he says, and this energy is also from the Ein Sof, just like in the higher worlds, except it has many, many garments concealing it. As it says, and he says, he quotes the Eitz Chaim, which is from Rabbi Chaim Vital. One of the Tanya is based on the Shalah. It's based on the Baal Shem Tov. It's based on the Mr. Chamagin and Reb Chaim Vital. He took it and he wrote a book based on. So he says in Eitz Chaim that the light and the vitality of this physical orb of earth, right? He says comes from Malchus of Asiya. Right, so it comes from a lower level, which is not revealed. He says, but however, make no mistake, In Malchus of Asiya, which is this low level, you have Malchus of Yetzirah. In Malchus Yetzirah, you ultimately have Malchus of Bria. And in Malchus of Bria, you have the highest level, Malchus of Atzilus, right? And Atzilus is one with God. So he says that, so even though this physical orb, right, it looks dead, it contains God's light, it contains God's energy, it contains the vibrancy, it contains vitality. And it's just the difference, however, is that the divine light is not revealed in this world as much as it was revealed in the upper world. But this is just how it's revealed, how much we can get from the sun, how much can we get from the light. But with regards to the core, the essence of the Ein Sof, there's no difference between upper world and lower world. We're getting the same energy, except like they do in Alaska, they put curtains up to block out the sun. So while it's true, there's many layers in creation, right? But beginning from godliness all the way down, it all has God within it, and it's just a matter of the revelation, which will explain. He is going to continue tomorrow. And I think the next day as well. So it will explain that the Shekhinah in the holy temple, that's where it was revealed the most. Even in this physical world, it was revealed like it was revealed in the upper worlds. Right? Normally, you can't handle it. Right? Normally, if you get such a dosage of godliness, such a dosage of energy, you would cease to exist as an independent being. You'd just be absorbed in the oneness of God, right? You couldn't view yourself independent. But with the Bet HaMikdash in the old city of Jerusalem, it's called in Yerushalayim, that there it could there God, because God chose that place, it remained it was able to reveal this incredible, in the Bet HaMikdash there was miracles constantly, just miracles constantly, right? Every day people saw miracles there. Every day they saw these things that happen, and that's because it was physicality, but it had such a high dosage of spirituality that nature and physical almost like bent and curved itself in order to get out of the spirituality's way. Here in this world, the way the nature runs its course is it doesn't bend too often, or if it does bend, you won't notice it. But there, the spirituality was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and therefore, because it was so revealed, because godliness, God stripped away these curtains, qualitatively and quantitatively, and the Bet HaMikdash, the God's energy, the Ein Sof shone. And a miracle occurred, nobody died. I mean, you could die. If you went into the holies of holies with an alien fire, or you were alien, you didn't belong there, you couldn't exist. Exactly right. Any questions?
So, Rabbi, the extra soul on Shabbat that we get gives us a better capacity.
Yeah. Well, that's what it says. We studied it, is that, I don't know if it's an extra soul. Your soul, it's not that you have an animal soul, a godly soul, and a Shabbat soul. No, your godly soul has this Shabbat flavor to it, the Shabbat influence. And Shabbat, we ascend to we resonate in a loftier world. Rather than resonate down here, we resonate in the upper world. And if we're conscious of it, we can tap into this glory of Shabbat.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all on the receptacle. So that's what Herman asked, right? Herman pointed out, it's all on the vessel. So this vessel here couldn't take godliness, with intensity, and this world, this vessel, and so therefore it was God. God reduced it to so physicality could exist, and godliness was not apparent. Tomorrow, please God, we'll continue on this thought, and he'll come to his conclusion of the Bet HaMikdash.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Good night.
God bless to all.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye. Bye.
God bless.
Good night.
You too.
Safe.
You too.
Be safe.
Someone wake up Joel.